All right, so on this file, this is an 11 by 14 inch 11 by 14 inch page, and I'm going to show you a couple of new things that you might not know to make it easier to design your poster. So this tool is called the Artboard tool in Illustrator, and if you click on it, it shows you the current artboard, and that is 11 by 14 inches right there, 11 by 14. But what you can do is you can actually create another area here, and this is a secondary artboard. You can click to select with the artboard tool which artboard you're changing by clicking. So I could change the size of the 11 by 14 one, or I could change the size of this one, which has an odd size of 6.03. So I could round that out to, let's say, 7 by 9. Not any really good reason to do that in this case, but I'm just showing you that you can, and you can move it. What I'm actually going to use this for is just to place the elements on so I can see them before I put them on the poster. So if I have my type elements here and I'm going to click to start creating type, one of the tricks that I like to do when I'm working with type is before I start typing, especially if I want to read the type, I will decide that the type is going to be larger, possibly than I need it, before I start to type. So here I'll do rock the vote, let's say. And then I'll duplicate this type using the select tool. And again, I encourage you to watch the tutorial, which is why I'm recording it, and not try to do it while I'm doing it, because you will miss the tutorial. And here I'll change it up a little bit over here. So maybe a few different times, 3-ish times, I'll type out the type in upper and lowercase and all uppercase, and I will apply the font that I think I'm going to use for that element and see what it looks like. Okay, well, that wasn't helpful because that's an all uppercase font. So let me switch it to something that's actually upper and lowercase, so it makes a little more sense to have upper and lowercase here. And I'm not going to be too picky here. I'm just going to pick this, which is called Chemi Retro. And then here on this one, I'll choose another font. And so I'll prepare a bunch of different elements over on the side before I even start using them. And here I can scale this up. And you'll put your event name, your dates, your location, your cost, all those things over here. And you'll type them out, and you'll get them in the fonts, the different choices that you might want to use, so that once you have them in here, you can drag them over and copy them into your design. And I'm not going to go and place all those elements in there. I'm just going to use these as an example. Next, I'll go over to the Layers panel, and I'll add a new layer. And on this new layer, I'm actually just going to use this new layer to make a few guidelines. Using the line segment tool, I'm going to draw a line that cuts the top of the poster into an area and give it a color for this line so I can see it, just a light gray. And maybe over here I'll put another line indicating a column of type, and then maybe another line like this. So it's a rough area within which I'm going to put the elements of my design. So I'm not trying to force it later. I'm going to try to design with the area in mind. And so again, if I look at the Layers panel here, I could give that a name, and I'll just call this one My Guides. And the reason why I'll do this instead of making guides with the guide tool is that I can much more easily unlock and move these than if I actually use guides from the guide menu. So once I have that, then I'll start dropping my elements in. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to talk about were text on a path, and also doing some different kinds of distortions with text, which can be prohibitive, not always the best thing to do, but if done well, it can be very cool. So I'm going to just take this Rock the Vote type and drag it over here, pressing the Option key to copy it. And there are several different types of tools in Illustrator for distorting type, and some people are very against distorting type. I'm of the school, if you do it well, it can be a good thing. This tool here that it's very tiny. I'm clicking on it, and what it is it's a warping tool. And there's one that's called Make with Warp, and there's one that's called Make with Mesh. This is called, another name for this is enveloping type. And I'm going to do this one called Make with Warp first. So I chose the wrong one. So I'm going to come back here again, and I'm going to choose envelope. It's really called the envelope tool. And I'm going to do Make with Warp. And there we go, Make with Warp. And what this does is it allows you to choose from some presets to control the distortion of your type. And I'm going to use, let's start with the arc. So arc upper is the choice, and I'm clicking on the preview checkbox, and you can see here that you can adjust how the type arcs. And that's not really filling my form very well, but as you can see, as I adjust the horizontal slider here, I'm starting to get what I was looking for, which is not having to figure out how to scale each and every character on its own myself to make that fit. And there's some other distortions such as vertical that you might want to add in depending on your type and your subject. But the bend here, if I'm going to set that, I'll probably set that back to 0 for the bend. And then again, I'm sliding the horizontal warp option. Okay. And now I'm going to click OK and move this type down and scoot over to the corner and rotate it a little so it's following my guide. You know, given that I'm working really fast because I'm making a little movie and just showing you some of the things you can think about, I think that is number one, is warping text. Okay, it can be very helpful. I want to make sure that this text is actually on its own layer, so I'm going to create a new layer, and this little blue dot represents anything that is currently selected. So I'm going to move this up, and so here I can lock the guide layer and it won't move, and if I want to just move the text, I can move the text without moving anything else. Okay, layers are really going to help you out when making your design elements. All right, so that is one type treatment I wanted to show you. The next one is how to make type on a path. Now there's several different ways to make type on a path. In this first way, I'm just going to do very basic, create a line and put text on a path. So I'm going to start with the pen tool here, and you can use any line tool. You could use the pencil tool, you could use the curve line tool, but I'm going to use the pen. And with this pen tool, I'm just going to click and drag and click and drag and click and drag and just make a simple sloping kind of a curve. And I don't want to continue the line anymore, so if I press the escape key, that will actually stop the line, turn the pen tool off, and then I'm going to come over to the swap fill and stroke control, and so now I have a gray thin line. Now this gray thin line does need to be on the same layer for now that the type is on, and that is this layer here. This is actually my type layer, so I'll name it that. With this line selected, I'm now going to switch to my type tool. Now let's say I have already typed the text, okay, which is what I did here. I've already typed the text, and I'm going to unlock this layer and select this type that says Rock the Vote and copy it. Command C. And come over to my guide that I just drew, which is actually a path, not a guide, and choose the type on the path tool. I've already typed the text and copied the text, created the line, and now I'm coming over to the line, and when the specific tool, again, that's the type on the path tool, hits the path, it lights up with this kind of green marker on the right side. And now I'm actually on the path, and when I paste the text, it follows the path. If I was to keep typing, that's what that would look like. If I didn't already have the type typed, I could simply just type on the path and start typing. I might not get the font I want, and in which case I will have to select it and then go and find the typeface that I want, which might, take up a little extra time. Maybe not a big deal, but you can see that it's kind of helpful to have all these pieces ready to go. It'll make your life a little easier. So again, I'll select this type and I'll copy it, and then I'll select this type and I'll paste it. I can select the type and come over back up into the character panel and increase the type size. And here's the guide layer. I'm just going to hide it. Right, so now I have that. All right, the next one is going to be type on a circle. So here is the ellipse tool, and I'm going to click and hold the shift key down and drag out this ellipse, which is black with no outline. Now it is a black outline with no fill, and now it is a gray outline. Using the text tool again, it gets a little bit different here. Text on a path tool. Depending on where you click on the path is where the type or the line of type is going to begin. So if I click here and I paste, that's where the R begins. If I click, let's try to click away. Now, actually, there. Now I undid. That's better. And now I'll go back to the type on a path tool and I'll click in another location. All right, so you can see where you click does matter. And then as we move to the next step here, I'm choosing the selection tool, but really I should zoom in first. Joe, do you have a question?
Can you do it on the inside?
I can show you how to do it on the inside for sure. All right, so now I just zoomed in because I need you to see these little weird handles here. There's these what are called import and output markers on these sticks that are really the beginning and the end of the type line. If I move this first one over, it doesn't look like anything's happening, and that is because the type on this line isn't that long. However, if I come over to the first one and grab it, I can roll the type around. So I can reposition the type. Sometimes you're going to want to put the type on the top and on the bottom and have it read correctly. If I start to roll this type around, it's not going to be correct facing. It's upside down. That's not what I want. So if I want the type also to be on the outside or of the circle and be correct reading, or if I want the type to be on the inside of the circle and be correct reading, I have to do a couple of things. So I'm going to move this piece up, and then I'm going to press the Option key and drag down to make a duplicate, and just move it up a little bit more. And in this case, I'm going to go back to the type on the path tool and show you this kind of angsty little move here. Actually, no, I want the selection tool. And here's the angsty little move. The angsty little move is there are these handles, and when you flick it, kind of push it, I'm pushing this towards the left, and then I'm rotating. It's kind of a little kinesthetic experience. You have to kind of play with it, but you notice how my cursor is staying inside the circle, and just one little false move and it's flipping the other way, and that looks about right, and it's just there. Okay, now it's on the inside of the circle and it's right, correct facing, but the problem here is that it's actually using the inner circumference of the shape or the circle instead of the outer circumference, which isn't necessarily wrong, but that might not be what you want. You might really want it to, like the type at the top, be the same circumference, the outside circumference of the circle as opposed to the inside. To adjust this, I'm going to come back to the type on a path tool and select this type sometime in the future. There we go. And then I'm going to use the baseline shift. Baseline shift is a way of moving the type away from the baseline. So if I go to my character panel again, window, type, character, I probably have it out here somewhere. Oh, there it is. And here it is. And is baseline shift here? Nope, that's my leading. Nope, that's my tracking. Okay, so that must be a paragraph control. Unless I'm not seeing all the options. Up, show options, and there we have it. Okay, so now I've got, when I'm showing more options, I've got a vertical scale, I've got the baseline shift, which is now at 0. And if I lower this number, the type is going to move to the outside of the circumference of the circle. Except now what's happening is the type looks all gappy. And then here we'll be able to adjust that with our tracking. So here I'll lower the tracking. So I'm closing up the space between the type again. And now I may need to come back here with the selection tool again and find the origin or the beginning of the type line. And there you go. So outside the circumference on both the top and the bottom text. And I could always come back over here and do, we'll change the type. Regular selection tool, grab this little handle and slide it over. Now all of a sudden something weird has happened with you. I really need you to see, and that is if I take this beginning handle and cross over the end handle, all of a sudden I can't see the type. What's happening there is that the type is overrunning the type box, which isn't a box, it's a circle. So I have to move. This actually represents the end of the type line, and this is the beginning of the type line. So you want to make sure that these lines don't cross over. So you should watch this tutorial a couple of times. So that was type on a path, both a freehand path and a circular path. Also a little bit of type enveloping.